let's cut that last part out. Why is intellectual property so important as a creator? Lots of people don't know this, but today I'm going to be talking about how you should be wary to make sure that publishers and distributors aren't taking advantage of you. Then I'm going to be giving some advice on how you can build your own intellectual property. Hi guys, I'm Brandon. I'm a professional author of manga, webtoons, novels, and video games. I work on original and adapted intellectual property, which are basically stories, for a living. And so today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about the importance of intellectual property, aka IP, as a creator and what it's like to build IP. And this video is sponsored by Dorian, which is an IP powerhouse for visual novel games, but more on them later in the video. Now, what is IP, right? So I'm going to give you guys an official definition here. Intellectual property refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, symbols, names, and images used in commerce. So IP actually spans outside of just creating stories, right? Anything that is essentially an idea that comes from our minds, patents, inventions, images, and of course stories, right? That all falls under that category of IP. Now, if you're working with a publisher and you've created something from scratch, IP is something that you're going to want to negotiate. Some publishers are going to try and take those rights from you. I've seen some terrible deals in my past, and therefore they would own the project if they take the IP. So depending on the contract, if a publisher owns the IP and after your project is over, they could technically replace you as a creative, unless it's in the contract somewhere specifically stated otherwise. And that's why you want to have an IP lawyer review your contracts, guys. But yeah, they can replace you unless they, if they own the rights to the story. So a good example is that Marvel has the IP for Spider-Man, right? Or actually Spider-Man is widely debated. I don't know who owns the IP right now. It's like, I don't know who specifically has it. It's Marvel, Sony, someone's licensing the IP, but someone has the IP, right? And they have the IP for Spider-Man, but none of the writers who are working on Spider-Man have the IP rights, right? Because they're doing an adaptation work. And that's why whoever is behind the scenes can keep alternating writers for the Spider-Man franchise, right? Like you have different Spider-Man series with different writers, and they can keep replacing you. It's not like there's just one writer doing everything for Spider-Man. But if you own the IP, for example, like Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, for example, is probably involved in most of the Harry Potter stuff, right? So if you want the rights to your story, IP is definitely going to be something that you want to have in mind. Now, how do we create something really big like Spider-Man or Harry Potter, right? The way I see building intellectual property is similar to the way that you would see building a company. So an idea itself is not worth much, but an idea, once it's created into a story, starts to have value. And once it's launched and you've got some numbers, views, readers, and revenue behind it, that valuation can go up. Now, how can you get started building your own IP story? Well, you can write a novel, you can commission someone to draw a comic for you, or you can even make a game. So that's where the sponsor comes in for today. So there's actually a platform called Dorian that allows you to get started on building your own intellectual property by making games. So I started my own series on there. It's called Blue Spark, which is an otome game about a girl who has the power to manipulate matter, which is pretty OP. And this cult organization is trying to chase her and her friends down and essentially capture them. And it's kind of like this runaway story. It's complicated. Now, the cool thing about Dorian is that you can build games by using the assets they have on the platform already. So there's no cost for you to get started. The only cost to getting started on Dorian is really just your time. And if you have your own art and want to custom import them into the platform to use them for your game, you can also do that as well. Anyone can make a game, you, me. You don't need game development experience. You don't need to be a famous writer. You can just get started on building your own intellectual property. If you're a beginner, Dorian is a great way to start developing your writing skills and build an IP at the same time. Now, if you're experienced, Dorian is a great way to host one of your IPs for little to no cost. So I definitely recommend checking out the app if you want to build a visual novel game. You can click the link in the description to get started as a creator, or if you just want to play some games, you can do that too. So for me, I serialize Blue Spark every single week and have thousands of people who have played the game. So what started off in my head as just a concept has now evolved into something that has much more value, right? Now, how can you start building your own IP? I'm going to speed through a few tips that can help you increase the value. So 1, consistency. The most important thing about building IP, particularly if you have an ongoing project or it's serialized, like the games on Dorian or certain webcomic platforms, is that you need to put out content consistently so that readers know to come back. So unless the story is really finished, you want to make sure that you have a consistent cadence in terms of when you're publishing the different, if it's a novel 1, when are you going to publish novel 2 if it's an unfinished story? So if you're doing an ongoing story, make sure that you have a consistent upload schedule. That's very important. 2, quality. Now, quality is extremely important, not exactly rocket science. I always say that serialization is the intersection between quality and speed. But quality for any project is really important, right? Rarely do crappy projects go all the way to become really high tier intellectual properties. Focus on making your IPs as good as you can in a very consistent manner. That's key advice. 3, marketing. You have a great project. Let's say you have a consistent release schedule. Now you're going to need readers. A lot of people really undermine the value of marketing, particularly on the creator side. People are like, oh, I don't want to sell I don't want to market. You got to market your work if you want people to read your work. Take the time to make sure that you're marketing, whether it's on social media, word of mouth, paid ads, whatever it is. Never rely on a platform or a publisher to market you. That's why I'm here on YouTube and social media. I'm promoting my own work constantly. In my opinion, marketing is just as important as creating the actual project. So invest the time, invest the effort, and sometimes invest the money to make sure that you get people to notice your projects. Now, 4, just get started. Lots of people have an idea. Not a lot of people will execute on this idea. Make sure that you take the time, take the first step, get started immediately on building your intellectual property, building your story, taking the steps to get it to that publication point. And that's why you can use a platform like Dorian to create an IP in a matter of minutes. And honestly, if you publish a game on Dorian, 1 episode, 10 minutes, you're already ahead of 90% of people who just have an idea and don't do anything about it. So these are some tips to help you guys out for building your intellectual property, basic tips. If you're interested on taking a writing class or paid consulting from me, make sure to check the links in the description. But yeah, that's the importance of intellectual property and different ways that you can use to grow your own. If you want to check out any of my stories like Blue Spark or my webcomics and manga, make sure to check the links in the description. Everything is in the description actually. And also, again, Dorian, the app that I've been talking about this whole video, link is in the description as well. Anyway, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't yet, and make sure to leave some questions. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them in the comments, or I will make a video about them. I've been making a lot of videos based on your questions as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your time today, and I'll catch you guys in next week's video. Peace.